So the whole point is not to depress you, but to bring the invisible visible, bring it from this deep place of like, this is just what I do, right? I put on my shoes and I just go outside. I wouldn't fathom keeping my shoes off and putting my feet on the ground as a first step, strengthening my feet, giving myself natural reflexology, and actually also detoxing the electromagnetic fields that have built up in my body. This is grounding at its core. This is why we literally ground our buildings, because we need that balanced. If we don't, we literally will blow ourselves up. We are circuits. We are 70 to 100 trillion little batteries, with electromagnetics of each of those batteries. Our heart is electromagnetic. Why do you think they pop us to restart our heart again? So when you realize, holy shit, we are an electric being, and now we're just experimenting with ourselves with Wi-Fi routers, with Bluetooth headphones. Very clearly, you see, I have no Bluetooth in my head, right? And in fact, I have this great company called Tech Wellness, and these are air tubes. So they cut off any at all electromagnetic fields to come into my brain. And my laptop, if it is, you want distance from your laptop because that's connected to endocrine disruption, infertility. And again, this is not me making this up. This is in the literature.
Welcome, Darin Olien. He is the co-host of the Emmy Award Winning #1 Netflix docu-series Down to Earth with Zac Efron. Spending nearly 20 years exploring the planet, discovering new and underutilized exotic foods and medicinal plants as a superfood hunter, Darin developed Shakeology, grossing over $4 billion in sales since 2008 for Beachbody. He has also created a plant-based Ultimate Reset 21-day detoxification program for the company. From his years of experience with the health space, he wrote his New York Times bestselling book, SuperLife, The 5 Fixes That Will Keep You Healthy, Fit, and Internally Awesome. As the host of wildly popular podcast, The Darin Olien Show, Darin curiously explores people, solutions, and health, as well as life's fatal conveniences, a segment of the show uncovering modern-day flaws and challenges that may be undermining our health and our environment. Darin is also the founder of Barukas, the most nutrient-dense nut in the world, coming from the Savannah of Brazil. Through sustainable business practices, the company is committed to supporting the important biome of planting 20 million Berzutia trees while getting out the most delicious nut on the planet. All right, I have the honor on bringing on somebody that I was so excited and anxious to bring on the show. It's been months in waiting. Darin Olien, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Erica, it's great to see you again and to virtually dive in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for those listening, I actually met Darin Olien at the Health Optimization Summit in London, hung out for a bit, and then I was able to hear his phenomenal talk on actually what I want to focus this episode on, which is fatal conveniences and really what that is. So I really want to dive into that. But of course, before we dive into that, I want people to get to know you more. Some might know you from the hit Netflix doc series and with Down to Earth with Zac Efron, or from just being a superfood hunter, the Indiana Jones that everybody knows of. So can you just kind of give us a glimpse into your background of how you even got to this place of being, so knowledgeable with superfoods, sustainability, health and wellness, your journey?
Yeah, I think the I certainly once a passion kind of became cognizant, like then I would get excited to dive into it. So kind of the life unfolding really informed my next steps, and being a college football player, getting hurt, then threw me into physiology and nutrition, and degrees in that, and then excited about kind of how the brain, the body, the soul came together. Still fascinated by that. Walking ridiculous miracle, and I got a master's in psychology. So but all that saying, it was just a tiny piece of sand in the beach that I would kind of come to realize I really liked. And so the superfood hunting came kind of innocently. I started kind of playing with foods, and kind of functionally, even before that was a term. Uh, and the more I dive into it, the more I realize that certain supplements or food items just were horrible. And I was like, why are people using, artificial this and artificial that? So that kind of led me to pulling the string on different superfoods or herbs or botanicals. And so then the innocent side of it was really just like, if I'm going to work with these things and learn about them, in kind of a formulation perspective, or a recipe perspective, then I gotta show up. I gotta go see the farmers, the collectors, and sure enough, I ended up in the Amazon and the Andes and ran around there. And then I came away with just ridiculous exposure to things that I've never seen before. And then that just kind of set off this curiosity. So then I formulated a bunch of products, luckily with some great products, like Shakeology with Beachbody, and then I ended up finding a very, very special nut out of the Cerrado of Brazil called Barukas. So tastes amazing, and one of the highest nutrient valued nuts we've ever kind of seen or tested for. So yeah, that was kind of my, my 15 plus years running around the world in that kind of form or fashion, figuring out how to do, bring quality, from certain places, and working directly with the people in the land. And then with that, and with kind of products being successful, I could keep kind of doing it and doing it. And then, just quickly to finish up, I just, I would get exposed to all this environmental stuff, and from pollution to lack of clean water. I got involved with getting clean water in Africa to about 500,000 people. And, so, the string of goals that you set out for yourself quickly become infinitely greater, I think, if you become open to investigating your own curiosity. And so, yeah, and then, serendipitously kind of more happened where, Zac reached out to me, and from a podcast I was on, and just talking about all kinds of health and everything else. And so our friendship started, and then we ended up doing, Down to Earth together.
Remarkable. Okay. So one thing that I think is so great, especially with what you do and a lot of people, your colleagues and people in this industry, health and wellness, is a lot has been uncovered, especially in the last few years, probably for you, maybe a lot longer than the masses have been hearing. But what I think is so important, and that's why, like at the biohacking event, for example, is like informing yourself, like ignorance isn't bliss, right? Yes, some things are hard to hear. Some things we want to like cover our ears and not see, but there is so much truth that should be unveiled to us, because ultimately health is wealth, health is everything. So if we're equipped with this knowledge of really what is hurting us, there are better options out there. And thank goodness, because of what you do and a lot of the people in the industry, thank goodness there's more options, like non-toxic foods, non-toxic products, and all these things. So we'll go into that. But I'm curious, just because I want to touch on the superfood aspect. I love superfoods. I'm a big cacao person. I eat my superfood mushrooms every single morning. I did all the things this morning. Like that's my morning routine. So I'm keen on all these things. So I'm curious, based, if you were to say like your top 5 superfoods that you feel everybody should be aware of and consuming every day, do you have your top 5?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that every day. It's probably slightly differently, but I would say that, you certainly can pick cacao. You certainly can put that at the top of the list. Now, where it goes wrong is everything that people are adding to it. Even dairy has been proven to undermine the benefits of the antioxidants in cacao, and obviously the added sugars are not a good idea when added to cacao. But high super dark cacao has huge benefits, from arterial flow to heart health to immune system response, to cognitive and neurological enhancement. And that comes by way of this incredible kind of turning on of this alkaloid called PEA, or phenylethylamine. And it's an alkaloid that gets turned on, and it's like the feeling of falling in love, which is why cacao and love has always been kind of interlinked. So again, without going down too far in that rabbit hole, but cacao, I've got 100% cacao with me at all times, right?
Amazing.
So I have, free trade Peruvian cacao organic wafers that I just have bitter, and I'll take it all because I'll just keep some in my cheek and gum. And I have to say for sure, spirulina. However, again, when I say something, I always go back to my roots, and that is processing.
The sourcing,
Because,
yeah.
the sourcing and the processing will either, in some ways, if you understand compounds, it can enhance, and if you don't understand the plant, it can decrease the value of said plant. So spirulina, but raw, food grade, frozen, which would be delivered to you, spirulina, like one of the greatest foods ever on the planet, infinitely more complete protein than people who eat steak and all of that stuff.
Wow.
So bioavailable, huge amounts of chlorophyll and iron and antioxidants, and the vitamin and mineral profile is phenomenal. There's even some research on something I did a few years ago with a top stem cell guy, where certain blue-green algae, which spirulina is, can evoke or release more of our stem cells, and particularly the adult stem cells, and particularly of those, they're called pluripotent or totipotent stem cells. So they release them from the vasculature. So you can do a combo of even like a wild blueberry, consuming a cup every day for 30 days increases the amount your body produces of stem cells. And then the blue-green algae actually coerces the stem cells into circulation for them to be used. And this is research you can actually look up. So again, I go off on these tangents with superfoods, but so spirulina, I just love and fell in love with moringa because it's the vitamin tree. It is 30, I think it's up to 36 antioxidants. It's got more vitamins and minerals per gram than almost anything we've ever seen. Again, there's a lot of spirulina on the market, but if you grow it and then harvest it and then slow to dry it and to wash it and dry it, it will lose 90% of those values, except for those minerals or those proteins that are naturally in it. You'll lose out on the vitamins, you lose out on many of the antioxidants. So you want to look for companies that have that are working the process of harvest, quickly wash, quickly dry, and then they can powder it. Or if you're in Florida or areas that are warmer per full season, you can grow some. So you can get some raw seeds and grow some and throw them on your salads. And then, just to mention, the medicinal mushrooms, chaga mushrooms is one of those mushrooms that throughout many dynasties around the globe. And that's where I like the ethnobotanical kind of look at some of this stuff. When you see that the Viking culture used chaga, the Ming Dynasty used chaga. And so you just keep seeing these very strong plants. Even in my home state of Minnesota, off of birch trees, you can harvest wild chaga mushrooms, one of the greatest antioxidants in the world, and also shows that there's so much to talk about with that. But there's also skin protection, so it turns on and activates melanin production, which is also connected to vitamin D production. And chaga is one of those true adaptogenic herbs, right? So it's got many qualities that doesn't force your body into a state like a caffeine or something would, but will help modulate. And that is really assisting, for example, the endocrine system. If you're immune depressed, it can help stimulate. If you're immune stimulated, it can help pull it down. So this is where, when you look at medicinal plants and you look at adaptogens, you just get blown away. I get blown away at the homologous kind of interaction, the interaction that we have between these compounds that are in these plants that actually facilitate healing and health and vitality. And that's where it's like, if that's not a miracle, that we need to lean back on, we need to kind of go back and start looking for stimulus bags of seeds rather than stimulus checks. We need seeds so that we can plant in our backyards and water our food and medicinal plants more than our lawns. So anyway, those are a few. I don't know if they're five, but
no, well, I think regardless, I think anybody listening, like, obviously Darin is the superfood king. He knows so much about, and he's done his own research, boots on the ground, to learn about these exotic fruits, vegetables, nuts that are available to us that are really beneficial, as you mentioned. And I consume all these things, except for I haven't tried that one of the berries. The what was the moringa?
Moringa leaf. Yeah. So
I haven't tried that.
Oh yeah. There's a few. I actually did some with the Navajo Nation. I did some growing in Arizona, and we stressed the hell out of the tree. And it's amazing. The one that we watered last grew 4 times higher. Then you really see how powerful a plant is. And then when we consume it, that same kind of power that allowed for the stress of that plant to thrive in, those compounds then have this synergistic effect in us. But yeah, number one, I'll have to kind of look back. I haven't found great moringa sources because I know too much about it, so I haven't found great ones. There's a company that I helped that was coming directly out of Senegal, where I'd been several times, and it's called More Moringa. And I think Selena Naturally, so Selena Celtic Sea Salt, I think they sell it through their site. So it's More, MOR. Okay. Sorry. More Moringa. So that one's a good one. And then we definitely got to get you Barukas. That hits the list. I gotta say.
I've gotten some at Air One, of course, that you can
Good.
find it in your local healthy food store. They are absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious. I completely agree. So anybody, of course, grab yourself some Baruka nuts. I'll include the show notes, the link for that. And so just out of curiosity, I think one of the most important things, as you mentioned, is the source these superfoods come from. And that's where I think that we really need to debunk that, like, the FDA and all these companies that are governing our produce and everything, there's so many loopholes that people need to become aware of, that you have to do your own research, your own due diligence to learn this. So I'm curious, since you traveled so many different places, what do you feel is the biggest problem with the United States and our agriculture that people need to be aware of so they could be more informed of where to find the best source?
Well, those are big questions in terms of our home agricultural system, and or are you saying like the agricultural knowledge of where like we're getting things from? Is that
Well, more like what should people be most aware of that so they could be more informed when they look for quality superfoods or produce or whatever to better our health, so that we could be more aware of the source things are coming from?
Yeah, so I think that sorry about the phone.
That's okay.
um I think that there's certain qualities that you need to, we used to say turn the bag over, or turn the what's the label say, and of course you need to do that. And all these artificial everythings and flavors and sweeteners and lists of chemicals, all of that stuff, obviously you want to stay away from companies like that. That said, you can find nothing on the back of a label in terms of its true quality. So you want to start looking at if a company is doing the right thing, if they're organic, if they're fair trade, if they're a wild food, they are gonna tell you, because it's a lot of work to get there, right? If they're not overtly telling you, then you're like, they're probably not doing everything. It doesn't necessarily mean also that every company needs to be organic or whatever. That's not necessarily the case. Even our Barukas are not organic. They're way beyond it, because it's a wild food that we collect from the indigenous people. So there is no pesticides, herbicides, there's nothing. It's in the wild of the Savannah. So that's a different conversation, but we tell people that, right? So we're not afraid of that, and we're not afraid of saying it's not organic, because we have a really good reason. So you want to look for a company's why are they even existing? If you can talk to someone like myself or someone from the company that's clearly knows what they're saying, been on the ground, works directly, like Guayaje is a great company with teas. Zambazon is a great company with acai. I know those guys. I know Zambazon owners quite well. Navitas, Zac over at Navitas. So, I know where his cacao and his maca and all these things come from. So there's certain companies that are doing great things, and they will tell you about it. If you're having companies not giving you direct answers, or their Q&As aren't really saying, they're going around it, then you got to be a little suspicious. Their integration. So when I go back to the why are they doing this? So for me, I want this Barukas, for example. I want as many people on the planet consuming this nutrient dense food that's so delicious. I know that they're going to get the nutritional value. I know that they're going to get the taste value, but the bigger reason is twofold. We're planting trees in an area that's being destroyed faster than any landmass on Earth today.
Wow.
Right? Wow. So we're planting trees to support that biome. Number two, we're employing thousands of families and people who now have a job collecting those, and then we're transparent with how much we pay them because we announce it on the radios and stuff, so no one can undercut them. So we're above. So that's the kind of thing and the kind of company you want people to understand, like, hey man, what are they standing for? What they're standing for, they're going to tell you about. And Simon Sinek, who's an incredible orator, and he created the Optimism Company. I had him on my podcast, and he talks of this quite a lot.
The why, yes.
The why, right? So when I started to unpack, I'm like, holy shit, he's talking about something that I innately had to do and always chose to do, because when I'd see it out in the world, boots on the ground, I would be like, how do you undercut these people, these family? And not saying that people are trying to undercut people, but in the naivete of culture or understanding, you can easily not do a country or a culture or a village well by the way you're conducting yourself. And so, anyway, it's a long answer.
Yeah, but
it's important to have companies start stepping up to the plate and say, hey, this is what we're standing for. And I'm currently talking with companies that are the largest alternatives to single-use plastic in the world, and they're innovating so that we can infiltrate the supplement world to eliminate all plastic containers and bags and everything else. Currently, when you're dealing with food, you have a very important job. You got to keep oxygen and light out in a lot of instances. So you can't just jump. Plastic is way too good at its job. So anyway, that's a tangent. But the point is, we stand for that. So we stay on top of it the more that we can. So those are the types of companies that you want to look for and get behind and vote with your dollars, and know that they're doing the very best by the products that you're getting, and also that they're standing for more, because then that takes what they care about, and they're able to influence that through the customer base. Because if the customers aren't buying a product, then they can't keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, I so respect what you're doing. I so respect your heart and your passion to bring this to light and to do your, like I said, boots on the ground. You're doing the work and the due diligence to bring the best forward. So I thank you for your passion. It's really well reciprocated. And so let's kind of like transition, because I know I want to get as much possible in this conversation with Fatal Conveniences, because I know you have a book coming out in 2023. Looking forward to it, because I think this is really, and you also have a series on your podcast on the Darin Olien Show, Fatal Conveniences. I know one of your pillars is superfoods, and then your Baruka nuts, and your, reducing footprint, and, wellness. And you have many pillars, if you want to say. So I want to focus a little bit on your Fatal Conveniences. And first, I guess, if you could explain for those listening, what is a fatal convenience and how do you define this?
Yeah, Fatal Convenience is an interesting story how this evolved in my life. Giving a little origin story, and I think people can start to understand. But first, let me just define it, and that is things that you may be doing that you think are fine, that they're convenient, and but you're doing on a daily basis. And if those things aren't fine, they could be undermining or actually harming you. And easy examples of that is a cell phone up to your head. There's so many links to so many issues with that. It could be heavy metals and deodorant going right, especially women with breast tissue being very, and the immune system, lymphatic system, links with that, all of that, and all of this stuff is based in research and things that have come out. So it's unpacking those things that why are foods and products not safe? I don't know. I am dumbfounded, and I have to be careful that I don't depress myself by all of the things that me and my team are uncovering. So I've got handfuls of people that I hire. I've got professional researchers. We're just unpacking this stuff, and then it's like, okay, so the whole point is not to depress you, but to bring the invisible visible, bring it from this deep place of like, this is just what I do, right? I put on my shoes and I just go outside. I wouldn't fathom keeping my shoes off and putting my feet on the ground as a first step, strengthening my feet, giving myself natural reflexology, and actually also detoxing the electromagnetic fields that have built up in my body. This is grounding at its core. This is why we literally ground our buildings, because we need that balanced. If we don't, we literally will blow ourselves up. We are circuits. We are 70 to 100 trillion little batteries with electromagnetics of each of those batteries. Our heart is electromagnetic. Why do you think they pop us to restart our heart again? So when you realize, holy shit, we are an electric being, and now we're just experimenting with ourselves with Wi-Fi routers, with Bluetooth headphones. Very clearly, you see, I have no Bluetooth in my head, right? And in fact, I have this great company called Tech Wellness, and these are air tubes. So they cut off any at all electromagnetic fields to come into my brain. And my laptop, if it is, you want distance from your laptop because that's connected to endocrine disruption, infertility. And again, this is not me making this up. This is in the literature. So now that you have a bit of a story of some of these things, which we can get into more.
Yeah.
My father in the 90s was, and I think this is a cool part of the story because it sets him up as to being super sensitive to chemicals in the environment. He worked on the Navy, and he was a keeper of the dragon, they call them. He worked on the atomic bombs on aircraft carriers, and they were around this, and they didn't know much about the radioactive fallout of even the bomb itself, and his thyroid was gone. Wow. And so the whole endocrine system from that point were kind of messed up. So my dad in the 90s started developing this foggy brain where he could just off-gassing of a print on a shirt to a deodorant to a shampoo smelling to a conditioner to a new couch to a carpet to a paint, you name it.
Wow.
My dad couldn't function. This was a highly functional, double mastered professor, right? Who also loved Harley Davidsons, loved triathlons, loved life. And so we quickly realized he was like, and he was one of the first people, he was making video cassette tapes and handing them out to people on education on chemical sensitivity. And people were like, oh my God, Dad, seriously? There's no way, right? And so then over time, you realize, no, this is a real thing. And so just to be around my dad, I would have to, he would send me, because I was in college at the time, he would send me the correct shampoos. So if I was going to go home to see him, I would have to do my clothes and the correct laundry detergent, put on the right deodorant, the right shampoo, just so I could hang out with my dad. So that was in there. So the cut to maybe 20 years ago, early 2000s, 2003, I ran into this researcher, Dr. Mohsen Hourmanish, became really good friends with him. We did some talks together. We did some workshops, and he popped this terminology, fatal convenience. I think he made it up. And he told me first about the cell phone and all of this research that was obviously at the time completely buried. And he's like, do not use your cell phone. Try and use just landlines and all of that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is, but then the more you look, the more you look, the more you look, the more you look. So all of this to say, I am highly confident that there's very, very few regulatory bodies, FCC, EPA, FDA, USDA, they don't have a lot of our interest, let's say. And so the idea behind the podcast and now the book is to inform, and it's so big. Like I was so nice. Oh my God. It's so big that, you know, I have an EMF chapter, dirty electricity. I have fast fashion. I have agriculture, right? And fast food and different products, personal care, cosmetics, in the home. So all of these chapters are
a book in itself. Like massively. Each chapter is a book.
each chapter is a book. So I've been having to consume huge amounts of information just so that I can zero in and conclude it so that it makes sense for a population that really is naive to it. And I don't, this is something to where, like you said, if you don't want to be aware of it, it still is affecting you. Just because you don't want to be aware of it and putting that cell phone, please, if everyone's listening, please do not let your children have a cell phone or a tablet or keep it on receiving signals. Download something, give it to them, turn it off, because children and their immune systems and their little brains, they showed research where a cell phone, and our adult, because we're thicker skulls and our immune system is stronger, that cell phone signal went all the way through the children's brain.
Unreal. So
it is a very, very, very dangerous thing. And I don't care what you think. I have so much research that it's scary what is truly out there, dating all the way back to the start of the telegraph. They knew when they put up those first energy wires that it was affecting insects and bees and mammals, but they did it anyway. And so every part of the telegraph was around the Spanish flu. It was created stress in the environments. It created stress in all of these areas. So now we're flipping on 5G. It just creates more and more stress in our bodies. And this is all showing free radical damage, stressing the immune system. So I was just compelled to be like, we can biohack all we want.
Right.
But the yin and the yang of it is, if we have all of these invisible things and these chemicals and the clothing and the perfumes and the cosmetics that we're doing every day, well, you're reversing, you're trying to optimize on the one hand. We all want to live a great, strong, healthy life, but literally, I think most of these things, if not all of them, are undercutting our health to such a huge degree. I think it's a Herculean elephant in the room that I was compelled to talk about, because I wish I didn't have to. I wish this wasn't a thing. Even Food Babe, she's been doing work on ingredients and foods for so long, getting McDonald's and Starbucks to cut out all these knowingly harmful ingredients. And what happens is, 60 to 80,000 new chemicals are created every year. And of that, 10% maybe are tested. And of that 10%, they're only isolated into certain ways that they're testing. No one's testing the interaction of the the huge amount of chemicals that we're just living in. So it's a really bad experiment. So my hope is that we just minimize. It doesn't have to be. So in the book and in the podcast, I always have solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a way, right? Minimize exposure, create some distance, don't buy this, but buy this. And so when you do that over time, you're going to feel amazing, right? You're going to minimize these unnecessary stressors that are in your life. And then, again, I don't know about you, but I like to line myself up with the kind of life that I want. And that's called integration, right?
100%. Oh my gosh. Yes. So that's what I think is like you said, it's there is what's amazing today's times. We have these conveniences, these fatal conveniences, but yet we have so many alternatives now. And so that's what I love people to, at least, some of it can be overwhelming, some of the things you share, because you don't want to eliminate certain things. Let's say like some people want to wear fresh cologne but there are amazing alternatives. I don't know if you know Jessie Golden. I don't know if you know. So she has a holistic wellness beauty line. She lives by you. I should connect you to both.
What's her? Oh, actually, I think I've talked to her. What's her company's name?
The Golden Secrets.
Yes, I have.
So she has a phenomenal, it's actually for men and women, essential oil perfume. It's amazing. And so that's an alternative in general, so I get it. Like some people are like, oh, but I have to cut out this and I really like it. So and there's nothing else, but that's what's amazing is in everything you share, you do share a solution, and there are solutions out there. So I don't want people to get so tied up on like, there are not options. So for example, which I would love to touch on, there's, let's say 3 main ones I would love to kind of go a little bit into. I know you're touching on EMFs and that's super important, but I do want people to know that there's other alternatives. I've had on my podcast, we've talked about dental hygiene. So the downfalls of the mouthwash and the microbiome and all that. And I've talked about skincare, because that's one thing that I think is so many people are unaware of, is the toxicity in skincare. So I've had that. Talked about like lack of minerals in our foods and our water and all that. So that's there on my podcast. But I want to talk to you about, most importantly, water, because that is really, water's life. I mean, we all need water. So if you could touch on what people need to know about our water and what is the solution to actually hydrating ourselves, because I read, what is it, 75% are chronically dehydrated, which is
in the United States.
Yeah.
The stats are crazy. And it even gets gnarlier, because nearly 10% of the 330 million people don't even drink an ounce of water on a daily basis. Not even an ounce.
They drink Coke or coffee thinking that's getting their water.
Yeah. So it's, and then there's been studies over time that at the core of many diseases, I can't say all of them, but certainly many of them is a dehydrative space and place. And we think of water as a simplistic kind of H2O, and it's infinitely not.
Yep.
It is so unbelievably complex that you have the best scientists in the world only watching to see what it does and not understanding how it's doing it.
Wow.
Now, you have Dr. Gerald Pollack, who discovered H3O2, which is a gel state of water that no one freaking knew about, right? They know about ice, about water, know about vapor, but there's a 4th state of water. And Dr. Gerald Pollack discovered that in his so he was a muscle physiologist. So he was actin and what is it? Actin is another molecule, but anyway, the contraction of muscle. And so in his study, he saw that there was this phase that was happening with a hydrophilic surface. So a lipid layer of a cell is hydrophilic. Obviously, the cell's not going to let anything in, right? There's certain, protein channels that will allow certain things in, and they have to have certain keys to it, like certain electrolytes and salt, right? In order for, and most of, by the way, this aside, most of the water that we have is inside the cell. We need it inside the cell. And this is extremely important for so many different reasons, for transport, for energy. And so what I mean by that is so Dr. Pollack realized then when water came up against, a certain part of water needs to be on the outside as well. When it came up against the hydrophilic surface, it demonstrated a proton and a photon. It shifted the electrons. So when you have shift of electrons, you have what? You have energy, you have conduction. And in that conduction, he saw this gel space. It was like, what the hell is that? So he measured it, and it was actually it exchanged one more hydrogen and one more oxygen. It was like, so it demonstrated H3O2, and it was a different structure, and it changed the whole freaking game. So, hanging out with a bunch of scientists in the water field, some of the best in the world, Nobel Prize winners, and spent 3-4 days with a bunch of them. Dr. Luc Montagnier, who discovered HIV, shifted all of his research in the latter part of his life towards water, because it demonstrates these properties that are very similar to the quantum field. And the quantum field changes by way of suggestion. So the quantum field, they're going, where did that fractal go? Where did that molecule disappear? How did it take this shape? By the looking at it or the observation of it. So the quantum world is this beyond physics. But then they're starting to see that these kind of things showed up in water. So you go, holy shit. Okay, so that said, obviously that's a massive, massive rabbit hole of science.
Of course.
That is so complicated. It's virtually like, it's the same thing of like when you flip on a light switch, electrons move and it creates electricity. No one knows how that actually is working. They just know that it's working, and we captured it in a wire, right? So that this AC current, alternating current, which by the way, we should have DC, a direct current, and that direct current we can touch and won't kill us. But we realize that all of that stuff is unexplainable, but we still can see the laws of it. And so what Dr. Pollack and all these now scientists are doing from around the world, and they gather every year, they're just gathering more and more data on this part of it. So let me just shove that aside, because gets way too deep. What can people do? You have to, again, fatal convenience. I talk about tap water. You can literally dive into that more. Check out the Tap Water podcast. You can go on my search bar on darinolien.com and find that. You can dive in, the show notes and all of that shit is there. But there's crap in our water. The water municipalities clean enough of it to where there's no microbes that are gonna kill you upon just drinking, because that's what's happening around the world, by the way. When people there's I think it's up to 3,000 children are dying every week, and it's actually more than that. It's closer to 6 or 9. But I'll have to correct that stat. But it's a lot of kids who are dying of waterborne diseases. So we get rid of that at municipalities. But what's still now happening is we use chlorine. And so chlorine is obviously a disinfectant, will kill everything. So that's already a problem. yes, it kills the bad things, but it kills everything else. But it also then reacts with other organic compounds within the water as it's going through the pipes and making it to your house. And now that goes into uncharted territory. And also some have been known to cause cancer. And then they did the insane thing of adding fluoride without our consent. So they add fluoride to the water saying that it's better for your teeth. Are you fucking kidding me? There's no way that you would allow. It'd be like saying, hey, everyone's low on vitamin C, we're just going to put it in everyone's water.
Right.
So it's like, give me a break. So fluoride is also connected to neurotoxicity and other neurological disorders and does nothing to help protect the teeth. And there's also another fatal convenience on toothpaste. Stay away from that shit. It is really, really bad. So there's all this crap, pesticides, pharmaceutical drugs, PCBs, phthalates, all this stuff. We need to get it out. So we filter it. How can we filter it? Reverse osmosis or distillation. So we reverse osmosis is a very, very, very fine filter that doesn't allow the micron size of those contaminants to pass through it. Distillation is the vaporization and condensing of that water, so no big molecules can come with it. So I say, there's a great company, AquaTrue,
yep.
On the counter, boom. I took it around with me all season 2 of Down to Earth.
Wow.
I put it in my hotel room and I put any water. So now I have my glass bottle. I have my structuring device that I have, which also recreates some of the structure of the H3O2, which is a whole nother conversation we can't get into. But the most important thing people need to do is distill or reverse osmosis their water. And then very importantly, because going back to the conduction side of we are electric, you need to add active, the right size electrolytes. You can easily get those with the high quality Himalayan crystal salt. I also love that, but I also love fulvic plant minerals that are ancient plant minerals. Great company called BLK. It's got drops you can take anywhere. So boom, it's black. It's like humic fulvic mineral. That's a whole other week-long workshop just on the amazing power of fulvic. Is its own super tonic. So you can add those back in, and now all of a sudden you've got a clean water. You've get rid of all of the junk, and now you have the electrolytes of the right size. Most of these electrolyte things that they add back in, they're not the correct size molecules, so you don't have the salts and the potassium and the sodium to actually get in the cell effectively. So it creates a osmotic challenge. So stay away from most of those things. They're not. I think Quinton is pretty good. I have no association with them, but I think they have some good clean electrolytes. So anyway, add those electrolytes back in, and if you really want to get a glass bottle, get a blue bottle potentially, and you can keep that in the sunlight, and that will actually help structure and create some energy back in the water. So keep in mind, stagnant water, when it's not moving in nature and it's vortexing naturally in nature doesn't move anything in a straight line. It vortexes and gets energy from the sun and from the earth, the electromagnetic fields, and then chelates minerals. And now you have live, living, structured water. That's the number one. So let me just be clear. If you have a spring and you can test it, that, of course, that is the number one. But most of us do not have. And most of it, unfortunately, because of our modern day fatal convenience way of living, we have hurt many of the natural aquifers and rivers and things like that. So you got to clean it and then build it back up again. You can vortex it. You can put it in the glass bottle, and then you're way on your way to having superior hydration.
Oh, so good. Well, I remember when we were at the summit, we pointed out the aqua filter that you're mentioning, and then also you were showing us your BLK mineral drops.
Yeah.
Do you have affiliate codes that I could drop in the show notes so that people could grab that from you?
Yeah, it should be on my website.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
In the
That would
back
be
of my
great.
website. Yeah.
Because that's what really people want, is kind of the guidance. Like there's so many options out there. So we're speaking to one of the best that knows everything about this. So I definitely want to include that in the show notes. So that's water. I mean, like you said, there's a whole thing about that. And we don't have the time to dig into all these natural conveniences. Like I said, on his podcast, he's literally walking through each one. Book coming out. I'm sure there's much more depth that's going to be shared, once the book comes out and everything. But it's really just to equip people with the knowledge that they're, number one, we can't trust all the sources to protect our health. We have to inform ourselves the best way we can and then make better decisions. It's really up to us. If you want to live a healthy life, it's really up to you. So
100%.
that's really key. So just to kind of close off, if you were to say, because I know you speak a lot about health and wellness, and in your previous book, SuperLife, you talk about, the 5 steps. So if you were to leave with the listeners today, let's say 3 steps that somebody could take right now to really optimize their health. Again, we talk about optimization, but we have to also think about those conveniences that we have in our everyday life. But if you could, if somebody's going to make the change, what should be the first 3 things to really get dialed in?
Well, I definitely think just that water. So up your water game. Just like I said, gave you the steps to do that for sure. And hydration, you'll see everything from your skin to strength, to performance, to elimination. It just keeps going, right? So hydration is key. And I would say, it's easy to go to grocery stores and everything else. Plants have so much power. Keep in mind, fruits have that same H3O2. It's structured in there. So I'm a huge fan of a lot of plants, and to amp up that game, I would definitely take some time for people to support your local farmers and your farmers markets. Because if you go there and try a strawberry, for example, and then one from Driscoll's or whatever that company is, it's not even the same thing, right? So give yourself the best. That's where I've always spent my time. Give myself the best foods ever, because that dividend that you're investing in what you're putting in your mouth, man, that will make everything better. Make your outlook and your life better, will give you more energy, will create more vitality. So I would take some effort in finding those places. And also, if all of you listening here, you want to grab some seeds, and if you have any plot of any land, or even just a herb little garden, grow something. You want to all this fear around food insecurity, don't buy into it. If you have a lawn, transform it into a food forest and walk outside your door. And if you're from a cold climate, there's ways. Dig into the ground a little bit, make a little, you can still grow food. You can do things. You can use your garage. You can use, full spectrum lights. Just amp up and get fresh food into your life, without a doubt. And, moving for sure, that's a baked in. You got to move every day,
no matter what.
and the simple act of breathing. And I would say anyone, that a 2 breath in before every meal is such a great way to kick on that parasympathetic before digestion. If you're stressed in any way and you're eating, your digestion is going to be nothing, right? So
that's interesting.
Just a double inhale. So that's it. And you could do it as a little prayer or intention, and center yourself with your friends or your family or whatever. And it does so much for your physiology. So I'm a big fan of breathing in that way, but you don't have to make it complicated.
Yeah. Amazing. So it's so simple and like such an easy way to start. But of course, I'm going to plug everything in the show notes. As I mentioned, go follow Darin Olien. So I always close off in asking my guests one question, which is if you were to share, which you shared so much, but if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you've learned along your journey that you just feel everybody needs to hear right now, what would that piece of wisdom be?
I mean, I always go back home, and back home is listening to myself. And we can be hijacked all the time with the inputs, media, social media, everything else, fear, whatever. And that hijacks us. And now our thoughts then take on those patterns. And then that starts creating your life. So I would say time out to that and start working the muscle of the creation that is you, is of you, and that you can put into the world, and really ask yourself every day, what do you want your life to be? And then literally spend time, 5 minutes, writing it down. And then you'll find that if you do that every day, you will actually create a map of how you can actually get what you really want. And I'm saying, what do you want your life to be? All the other stuff will come, the houses, the cars, all that stuff. What do you want your life to be? Who do you want to be in your life? What does that feel like? What does that look like? I would say that more than ever, I'm practicing that more than ever because of all of these different inputs. And it is one of the greatest mental health things I think you can do, because it also gives way to dumping things that are also not yours. Like, I don't want my life to be that. What am I doing spending all of that time doing that? That was for my partner, that was for my father, that was for my mother. And like, where are you in the equation of your life? Find yourself and then put action towards the life that you want. Then you will bounce out of bed and go, great, today I get to create my life over and over and over again, and add that all up. And then you'll look back and go, this year was magical.
Oh my gosh, mic drop. Woo, that was a good one. Very powerful. And you inspired me just in that one message alone. Oh my gosh, Darin, you're just phenomenal. And I just so appreciate you. You're such a cool guy. And I feel your vibe and your energy. And just thank you for all the goodness you're doing in the world. Truly, like I can't wait for your book to come out. I'm going to share it like wildfire, because I really truly believe this is what the world is so ignorant about. And it's not necessarily all people's fault of not being aware, because we rely on the government or FDA to protect us. Like we have confidence in that, but this is revealing that there is deeper layer to that. Like, I know that when I've talked several times on my podcast about skincare, and so many people are unaware of, I think it's the FDA has only banned 12 chemicals in the United States, but then in the UK where we met, it's like thousands. And I remember I struggled with melasma, and I was using hydroquinone a lot, and that's one of them. Like, it's proven to cause cancer. So it's just nuts. So I just thank you for what you're bringing to the surface and to the light, because it's so necessary. It's really the world we're in of these conveniences, and it's just getting started too.
Yeah.
So
it's a forever job all of a sudden. So in order for things to change, you have to face it. And so we have to turn and face this stuff so that we can empower ourselves to create the life again that we want to live.
Yeah. Don't get overwhelmed or stressed on your end, because you're digging through all the research and it's overwhelming, I'm sure.
Man, it's been tough for sure.
I'm sure. Well, Darin, thank you so much for everything. Truly, it's been an honor.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Erica.